Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids of the Week video. Another entry for you here on this series, and again, just simply following the random page when it comes to the cryptids.wikia page. In this case, I came across one this one just popped up on the random page, and it's been one that's been suggested by yourselves before. I just never really did it because, again, anything involving Bigfoot type oriented monsters just kind of wasn't my thing. But for the sake of this series, and again because of the integrity that I have, where I'll just talk about anything that comes up on the random page, here it is. And in this case, it is the cryptid known as the Skunk Ape, which is almost like an all-star type status cryptid here in the US, if but for the fact there are others that are more popular than it itself. But should anything happen in the future, and let's say there's a new resurgence of sightings of this skunk ape, then I think it'll definitely go up to the all-star status. And you're looking at it here. So what is the skunk ape exactly? Well, basically it's the Bigfoot for the state of Florida. There is apparently something that has been around for a couple of decades now. Whatever this thing is, I don't know. Maybe it could be something in terms of a Bigfoot. Maybe it could be something in terms of another type of cryptid. Some people have suggested that it's even something paranormal or UFO related. Who knows? But the most common thing tied to this cryptid is that it's more of like a human-like Bigfoot. Just imagine your average Bigfoot, and that is the skunk ape. The distinct difference, though, and the reason why it gets its name as the skunk ape, is because this particular cryptid apparently has a very foul smell. I mean, it smells putrid. It's disgusting. The people that have encountered this thing over decades instantly smell it far more quickly than they actually see it. In fact, with regards to its smell, it's been described as being a combination of being as horrible as a skunk, mixing it with some kind of trash heap or some kind of trash dump. Others have compared the smell to anything involving that of, like, let's say an elephant's cage that has been rampant in terms of use for a good while. So imagine that particular putrid smell with this cryptid, and you have the skunk ape. As far as its characteristics, basically, again, it's a Bigfoot, but it tends to have black fur. So rather than the more common, let's say, dark brown fur or really dark brown fur that some of the other Bigfoot's pictures allegedly have been taken of, in this case, it is purely just black fur. And its most distinct feature seems to be red eyes, normal size red eyes, that it has on its head. This is pretty distinctive because when it comes to red eyes, apparently most primates don't have that kind of retina on the back, or that special distinction in their eyes, in their retina, that reflects light, so that way it produces that red light. But in this case, this particular cryptid does have it. Now, as far as its sightings, they were very rampant sometime in the 60s to the 70s. Apparently, there was a huge number of people, hundreds in fact, that came across this cryptid either by accident or maybe some were on the hunt and they were trying to find more and more evidence of the skunk ape. I tried to see if there were any distinct tales like that. One story, there's always these encounters where there's always going to be less than a handful of people having a very close encounter with a cryptid, to the point that they can cite what happened to the letter, like almost to the date, to the time, to the weather, to what happened to their car, what happened to their home, along those lines. But nothing. I couldn't find anything as far as a single story. There's always a lot of people saying that they heard about others that had encounters with the skunk ape, but nothing in terms of, let's say, anything involving actual encounters. In fact, there was so much so that in the autumn of 1974, this seems to be the peak period of the skunk ape encounters, where many reports were sent over to the Dade County, some kind of department there in Florida, and whether it was a police department or whether it was something as far as a special animal control department, who knows, but many people filed reports about either seeing the skunk ape or about hearing others having encountered the skunk ape itself. Now, as far as what is considered, I guess you could call it the most commonly cited or quoted experience, ironically, it has to do with a woman who remains anonymous to this day, but didn't actually name this encounter as being with a skunk ape. She actually thought it was an encounter with an orangutan, and you'll see a picture of it here. Basically, it's like this. She typed up a letter, and it was done anonymously, so she sent it to the sheriff's office either by mail or dropped it off, but she did this 100% anonymously. She did not leave her name. She did not leave her contact info. Nothing along those lines. All she stated was that, and again, when you have a chance, read this letter. If you can see it there, it shows the information to the word of what it is. It's the actual letter itself. And all she stated was for several days she encountered what she thought was an orangutan. And this was an orangutan that was found in a crouching position several times in the back of her home. And the reason why it was there was because she had either some kind of fruit or some kind of apples there in the back that the orangutan would come, what she was quoting as an orangutan, would come out and grab the fruit and then leave. Nothing in terms of actual harmful encounters with this woman. Nothing in terms of the skunk ape causing any kind of damage. No, nothing. It was just simply the woman experiencing this from afar, at least from the inside of her home, and then typing up the experience and then sending it to animal control, or at least in this case the sheriff's office, to try to alert some kind of animal control. She did cite something where she said, and again this is her words, the orangutan was making deep whomp noises, and it sounded much farther away than it turned out to be. So apparently whatever the skunk ape is, it creates a unique, as she describes it, a whomp noise, probably like some kind of bellow, some kind of noise that is common among apes. I mean, we've all seen the footage on the Discovery Channel whenever there's some kind of crying calls from any kind of primates, especially orangutans, monkeys, gorillas, whatever. They have a very distinctive call. So imagine something like this, but it's coming from the back of your home, and you can see why this woman typed up the letter. In fact, she did this because she said, while again nothing happened in terms of any kind of encounter, she was concerned about what could happen, because apparently she had grandchildren that like to come over and they like to hang out in her backyard, and the last thing that she wanted was something as far as this animal, again calling it as an orangutan, doing any kind of harm. But again, the irony of all of this is she took pictures of the skunk ape while it was hanging around her backyard, and these have become known as the definitive Skunk Ape Pictures. So I'll show it again. I mean, this is the one that is considered pretty much the holy grail of the skunk ape, and you'll see exactly what most people describe it as. There's the black fur, there's the red eyes. In this case, it looks like the skunk ape is almost caught in a surprise, where it's emitting like a surprise look, maybe because of the flash of the camera. But whatever was the case, it did not hang around shortly after that, and it left. Interestingly enough, again, the woman stated that whatever this thing was would continue to raid her apples. So you would think that that there would be something as far as her taking on the apples, but apparently she did not on there. So that is at least one definitive example of an encounter with the skunk ape itself, but that's it, nothing else. This happened in autumn of 2000, by the way, and there hasn't been any other really, I guess, exciting news with regards to the skunk ape. But I find it fascinating that this woman decided to keep herself anonymous, because here is a cryptid that could have had, again, an almost all-star status, and she could have been the main person to be interviewed, to be talked to, because no doubt with all the cryptid shows, all the cryptid radios, in some cases the paranormal stuff, I mean, they would come to her and interview her if she would have chosen so, and become, let's say, a popular person for this cryptid, then she could have become the mainstay, like the headliner, when it comes to encounters with the skunk ape. But no, she decided not to. She decided to just completely remain 100% anonymous, probably because in the letter she also stated she was a senior citizen, so she didn't want to have anything as far as, let's say, more popularity or any kind of infamous stuff tied to her. The closest that people have come to as far as the photos, there was a guy by the name of Lauren Coleman. He was able to track down where these two photographs were taken, or developed at, and he found it to be at an Eckerd's lab somewhere in Sarasota, Florida. But that's it. That's about the closest in terms of who took these photos and what they were. It looks pretty convincing. I mean, when it comes to these photos, especially that one, there seems to be something as far as like it doesn't look fake. In other words, it doesn't look like something as far as an obvious man in suit or cheap production. No, it looks kind of real. So as far as the status of whether the skunk ape is real or not, I leave it out there open. I'm more open to the fact that it is real. There's a lot of empty places still in Florida, especially in the Everglades. This could be a creature that lives anywhere in those hundreds and hundreds of acres of pure swampland. I mean, there are areas in Florida, it's weird. I haven't gone to Florida, but I've seen shows centered around Florida, and there's areas where there's huge metropolitan cities, and then just right next to them, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres of nothing, just pure Everglade swamp, foresty type areas. So it could easily blend in something along those lines and just stay in that area as is, undisturbed. But for the fact that every now and then somebody could come across it. So what do you guys think? The skunk ape. This is, again, the cryptid of the week, an almost infamous type cryptid. Not too many encounters recently, especially with the new age of so many people having iPhones and smartphones that they could easily whip out the phone and take clear video, clear images. Nothing yet in terms of a solid proof. The closest we have are those two photographs that I've shown. But if anyone has any other tales, any other experiences that people can say about the skunk ape, it'd be fascinating to hear. Also, if anyone has any stories from the 60s, 70s, I mean, apparently that was, again, the prime time of the skunk ape encounters. Who knows where it went afterward? Maybe it just decided it had enough with encountering humans, and it just decided to go out further into the Everglades. But if anyone has any more stories about that, that'd be interesting to hear. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.